Honey? What's wrong?
Mom. Who's that?
Go back.
James Wan is a Malaysian-born Australian filmmaker. You might know him from his work Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring, or recently The Curse of La Llorona. But what makes it so intriguing, a lot more interesting, in compared to other horror films? Well, basically there are three things: music, cinematography, and captivating characters. James Wan believes sound creates both of the films, Insidious and The Conjuring. He said, "I've always said if I had to pinpoint what's more important in a scary movie, the soundscape or the visuals, I'll pick the sound." An example from Insidious was a scene where the mother was sitting at a piano, resting when she hears a quiet whispering in the baby monitor on top of the piano. James Wan implements the use of music to build that suspense and introduce a new sound that forces us to stay in focus. This creates a sense of significance, as it is the only thing that you can focus. It pulls our attention, forces us to wait. The anticipation, the waiting, when it will come out, builds up that first foundation of the feeling scare, which is the suspense. James Wan entirely focuses on perfecting the suspense feeling through the use of sound. Why? As an audience, we are compelled to choose a character that we can relate or input value on. We embody that character. Once we embody that character, we became that character. And in any situation that we are in, we would always rely on our five senses. One of the most important sense of all is hearing, sound. This whole philosophy of becoming the character of the film is what James Wan utilizes and hope for. James Wan somewhat relies on us to embody that character and follows the character. If the character pauses, we as an audience pause. If the character listens, we listen. That is why James Wan often builds suspense through the use of sound. But it's not just music and sound. Wan loves to create a long sequence of normal, uninterrupted events to build up that suspense for his scares. One of my favorite scenes that best describes this will be a scene from his film Insidious. When the character Renee Lambert, played by Rose Byrne, started cleaning around the house, this long, uninterrupted shot tracked Renee's movement and subtly hints ghostly figure within the shot. Often, the audio and the visual complements one another. It constructs suspense in which glued our attention to it. We can't predict when it will come up, when it will show up, but a wandering feeling when it will come out, the anticipation of waiting, that's the real scare. In addition, captivating characters. As I mentioned before, to fully indulge in films or story, we must first surrender ourselves and suspend that disbelief. We have to embody and personify the character and follow through the characters. Given this, James Wan focuses on developing the character, creates an umbilical relationship with the audiences. He makes us curse the mortality of the character. James Wan intentionally used the character's decision to trap the audience's emotion. When the audience's emotions are aligned with the character of the film, we fear for them. When they're tense, so are we. The legitimacy of Wan's horror films comes from creating moments that only the most attentive audiences will find disturbing. He follows the philosophy that once your audience is fully engaged in the suspense of the film, it's easy to scare them. And more importantly, you've earned it as a filmmaker. James Wan focuses on the psychology of horror, and the idea of religion often revolves around it. And this can be currently seen in the Conjuring series. The notion of religion is widely being explored in the Conjuring universe.
We don't know what's going on.
One utilizes what all of us can relate and somehow exercise it for it to be strange and frightening. And what it's actually doing is tapping onto humanity's primal fear, which is the feeling of doubt, loss, and danger. An example would be a doll in Annabelle film. Doll is something that we can all relate. Maybe it's something that we have or family that would possess it, but we've definitely seen it. For James Wan to connote the idea of a doll to be something that can be demonic or dangerous, it tapped onto our primal fear, which is the feeling of doubt and a sense of danger. Same thing can be seen in The Nun. The whole concept of that film can be briefly stated that even in religion, a demon can taint it. But which one would you believe? The strong, explosive presence of demons or subtle, quiet, yet truthful presence of God? You start to doubt yourself and ask questions once the movie is done. That thought, that fear that lingers around you is a work product of James Wan that he masterfully issued. Granted that not a lot of people would be scared of horror films, nor a fan of it, as it is predictable. But let's not forget that horror film is a film nonetheless. It is desired to be complex, it is desired to be analyzed, together with it is desired to be broken down and be discussed. And that's the problem with any other horror film directors or writers. They only sought us to make us scared and frightened. But that's not the only intention of a horror film. In my opinion, horror films should be taken seriously, just like in any other films. Horror films needs to be detailed, filled with alluring characters, intriguing plot, conflict, resolution, structures, scenes, dialogue, sound, visuals. And that's what every horror filmmaker should aim for. Not a simple plot with jump scares. A lovable character that we can relate. A plot that tapped into our fundamental fear. Sounds that creeps our spines and visual that leaves us scars when we close our eyes. It's not easy, but James Wan has done it. He remodeled the horror genre.